My hands froze mid-air, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 3 stretchers were rushed past me, my wife, my own brother, and my teenage son, faces pale, motionless, tubes running from their arms. I lunged forward, screaming their names, but the doctor's hand pressed firmly against my chest. "You cannot see them yet," he muttered, voice tight. His eyes avoided mine, as if the truth itself was too heavy to deliver. Why? What happened? My voice cracked, desperation clawing at my throat. That's when he looked down at the floor and whispered, "The police will explain everything once they arrive." The hallway spun around me. Police? Why the police? My mind raced through every possible nightmare, an accident, an overdose, something criminal, but nothing made sense. Before I tell you what unfolded next, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this story. Trust me, you don't want to miss the twists that are about to come. I gripped the doctor's coat. "Tell me the truth right now." But before he could answer, 2 officers walked in, their faces grim. They glanced at the stretchers, then at me, and one of them said, "Sir, we'll need you to come with us. There are details you need to hear before you see them." Every step toward that cold interrogation room felt like a march toward my own destruction. My palms were sweaty, my chest heavy, and the silence of the officers was louder than any scream. Finally, one of them sat across from me, opened a file, and said words that nearly stopped my heart. "Sir, what we found in that hotel suite changes everything you thought you knew about your family." My legs almost gave out when I heard the word hotel. My wife, my brother, and my son. What were they doing in a hotel suite together? My throat tightened, but I forced the words out. "What? What do you mean? What did you find?" The officer slid a photo across the table. My trembling hands picked it up, and the sight nearly ripped the breath from my chest. It was the hotel. Room champagne bottles scattered, expensive meals half-eaten, and on the bed, 3 glasses with traces of powder at the bottom. "This wasn't an accident," the officer said firmly. All 3 were drugged, and based on the evidence, it wasn't random. My heart stopped. Drugged? By who? The officer's jaw tightened. "We believe it was intentional." And he hesitated, glancing at his partner. We found security footage. Your wife and your brother entered that suite together hours before your son arrived." They looked close, too close. The words stabbed like knives. I couldn't process it. My wife, my brother, my own family betraying me while my son somehow got dragged into the mess. I slammed my fist on the table. Where is my son now? "Is He's stable," the officer said quickly. But the story gets worse. The toxicology report suggests the drug was meant for only one person. Someone wanted your son out of the way. The room spun. My blood turned to ice. Who would want to hurt him? And why were my wife and brother tied to it? At that moment, the officer leaned closer and said in a low voice, "We need to ask you something, sir. Has your wife ever given you a reason not to trust her?" I froze, staring at the officer's question. My mind raced through years of marriage, little lies, unexplained trips, late-night calls she brushed off as work. I always ignored them, convincing myself she was loyal. But now, it all started to fit together like broken pieces of a puzzle. The second officer slid another file across the table. This was found in the hotel safe registered under your wife's name. Inside were stacks of cash, a fake passport, and a small notebook filled with names, dates, and strange codes. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, flipping through trembling fingers. The officer leaned forward. "Sir, this isn't just a family affair. Your wife was under surveillance for suspected ties to an underground network. And your brother? He was helping her." My stomach twisted violently. My own blood? Before I could speak, the officer dropped the final bombshell. He opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. Grainy footage showed my wife in the hotel lobby, slipping an envelope of cash to a man in a dark coat. Then, shockingly, my son walked into frame looking confused, as if he'd been called there. Seconds later, he staggered and collapsed. My hands shook. She set up our son. The officer nodded grimly. "We believe your wife and brother were planning something bigger. But your son got in the way, and that's why." He hesitated, then looked me dead in the eyes. "You need to prepare yourself. When she wakes up, we'll know the full truth. But from what we've seen so far, your wife isn't the woman you thought she was." The room went silent except for the pounding of my heartbeat. Betrayal, lies, a secret life I never imagined. And worst of all, my son caught in the middle of it. I stood by the hospital door, my chest tight as the nurse announced, "She's awake now." My feet felt like lead, but I forced myself inside. There she was, my wife, her face pale, lips cracked, eyes darting nervously as soon as she saw me. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Where's our son?" She croaked. I clenched my fists. "Don't you dare pretend. The police already told me everything. The money, the passport, the meetings. And my brother, what the hell were you two planning?" Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face before she quickly looked down. "It's not what you think," she whispered, voice trembling. "I was protecting us. Protecting you. Protecting me?" I snapped. "You drugged our son. You nearly destroyed him. You betrayed me with my own brother. And now you talk about protecting me." Her hand shook as she reached for mine, but I pulled away. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Listen to me. Daniel forced me, your brother. He got me involved in something I couldn't get out of. If I didn't play along, they would have hurt us all. I swear I never wanted this." Before I could respond, the police entered the room. The lead detective stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter, it's time you stop lying. We have your emails. You weren't forced. You were the one arranging the deals. You pulled your brother-in-law in. You planned this." The room fell silent. She froze, caught in the web of her own deception. My chest tightened as I realized the woman I had shared a life with wasn't just unfaithful. She was dangerous. My son's voice suddenly echoed in my head. The last thing he said to me that morning, "Dad, I trust you." And now I knew the only way to protect him was to end this nightmare once and for all. The next day, I sat by my son's hospital bed, holding his hand as machines beeped steadily beside him. His eyelids fluttered before he whispered, "Dad, what happened?" Why can't I remember? My throat tightened. I didn't want to crush him with the truth, but lying would be worse. "Son," I said softly, "you were given something that made you unconscious. You're safe now, but we need to talk when you're stronger." Before he could ask more, the door opened and the detective walked in with files in his hand. He looked at me and then at my son. "He deserves to know," the officer said firmly. The detective laid the papers on the bedside table. "Your mother and your uncle were working together. They planned to move large sums of money out of your grandfather's business illegally. When you started asking questions, they saw you as a risk. That's why you were drugged, to silence you." My son's face drained of color. He turned his gaze to me, voice trembling. "Mom and uncle together?" I nodded, my chest heavy. "Yes. I didn't want you to hear it like this, but the truth is out now." Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, "She chose him over us." At that exact moment, the nurse peeked in. "Sir, your wife is demanding to see you. She says she has something important to confess before the court date." I clenched my jaw, my heart torn between rage and disbelief. What more could she possibly say after all the damage she'd already done? But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. If she wanted to speak, it meant she was hiding one last truth, and something told me this final revelation would change everything. I walked into the small visitor's room where Emily, my wife, sat handcuffed to the table. She looked nothing like the woman I once knew. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen from crying, and her hands trembled as she tried to hold the cup of water in front of her. When she saw me, she forced a smile. "You came." "Thank you." I didn't sit. I stood across from her, my arms crossed. "The detective said you wanted to confess something. What could you possibly say now?" Her lips quivered. "I never meant for our son to get hurt. That wasn't the plan. Your brother and we thought we were being careful. But he panicked. He said if our boy started asking questions about the missing funds, the whole operation would collapse. So he slipped something into his drink." I slammed my hand against the table, making her flinch. "You let him poison our son. You sat back and let that happen." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I swear I tried to stop him. But I was in too deep. I couldn't walk away. "Your brother promised me a life money, freedom, everything I thought I deserved. And I was stupid enough to believe him." Her words cut like knives, but then she leaned closer, lowering her voice. "But there's more. Your brother wasn't just stealing money. He was planning to take the entire company from under your father's name. And I signed documents that helped him. If the police find those, I'm finished." Felt my blood run cold. So this wasn't just betrayal in love, it was betrayal in blood and legacy. My wife and my own brother plotting together to destroy everything my family built. I stared at her, rage and disbelief colliding in my chest. "Emily, you haven't just lost me, you've lost everything." And as I turned to leave, she screamed after me, "You don't understand. Your brother doesn't just want the company, he wants you gone. Forever." The guard pulled her back, but her last words echoed in my head like a death sentence. The detective called me back to his office later that evening. Papers and photographs were scattered across his desk, and the tension in the room was heavy. Enough to choke on. He pushed a file toward me and said in a low, grim voice, "You need to see this." Inside were surveillance photos, my brother meeting with men I instantly recognized from shady business rumors around town. One picture showed a briefcase being exchanged. Another showed my brother signing papers in some dimly lit bar. But the last one made my stomach flip. It was a photo of him, pointing at a picture of me. The detective leaned back, arms folded. Your wife was telling the truth about one thing. Your brother wasn't just after the company. He wanted you out of the way, permanently. The men in those photos hired muscle, paid in cash. I gripped the edge of the desk, trying to steady myself. So what are you saying? He planned to kill me? The detective nodded. That car accident you had last month, the brakes failing on the freeway, that wasn't a coincidence. Our report shows the lines were cut deliberately. And guess whose? Fingerprints were on the tools we recovered from a mechanic's shop. My hands clenched into fists. My brother. The detective gave me a long, heavy look. We'll have enough to arrest him soon, but you need to be careful. He knows you're still alive, and that wasn't part of his plan. I left the station with my mind racing. Betrayal from my wife was one thing, but betrayal from my own blood, my brother, who grew up in the same house, ate at the same table, shared the same memories, that was a wound I wasn't sure would ever heal. As I pulled into my driveway that night, a single thought burned hotter than anything else. If he wanted me gone, he'd have to face me first. The next morning, I didn't wait for the police. I couldn't. This wasn't something I wanted handled with polite court dates and endless paperwork. I needed answers. Face to face. I drove straight to my brother's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel, so tight I thought it might snap. His car was already in the driveway. Good. He was home. When he opened the door, he had the nerve to smile, like nothing was wrong. "Brother," he said casually, "what brings you here so early?" I stepped inside without asking. Cut the act. I know everything. His smile faltered for the first time. "Everything?" he asked, playing dumb. I slammed the folder from the detective onto his dining table. Photos, receipts, and reports spilled out like a deck of cursed cards. The fake accident, the deals, the meetings. You planned to take me out, and for what? Money? Power? He leaned back in his chair, his mask slipping, a cold smirk replacing the fake warmth. For everything you stole from me. The company, the respect of our parents, the life I deserved. You think being the good brother made you untouchable? My voice shook, but not from fear. Rage was boiling inside me. So you teamed up with my wife, slept with her while plotting my death. You destroyed this family. For a moment, there was silence. Just the two of us staring at each other across the table. Then he said in a low, venomous tone, "You were never my brother, just an obstacle." I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears. Every muscle in my body wanted to leap across the table and end this with my fists, but I forced myself to stay still. Because I realized something. He had just confessed. And the tiny blinking red light in my pocket, my phone recording every word, was capturing it all. I stood up, my chair screeching against the floor. "You're done," I whispered. "You'll never hurt me or my son again." His eyes widened for the first time, realizing too late what had just happened. I didn't even make it to my car before the police pulled up outside my brother's house. 2 squad cars, lights flashing, neighbors peeking through their curtains. My brother stepped onto the porch, trying to act calm, but the moment the officers approached, he panicked. "What's this about?" he demanded, his voice shaking. I crossed my arms and simply said, "Check the recording." One officer nodded, and I handed him my phone with the fresh audio file. The cops listened for less than a minute before their expressions hardened. One of them turned to my brother and said, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted homicide, and obstruction of justice." The neighborhood erupted in whispers. People were recording with their phones, capturing the phones. Sight of my brother, once the respected businessman, being shoved into the back of a police car, his face pale and furious. "This isn't over," he screamed at me as they closed the door. "You'll regret this." But for once, I didn't feel fear. Only relief. Back at the hospital, I visited my son first. He was awake, weak, but alive. The moment he saw me, tears filled his eyes. "Dad, I thought I lost you." "You'll never lose me," I whispered, holding his hand tightly. When it came to my wife, the room felt colder. She sat on the bed, pale, avoiding my eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she stammered. "I just wanted more, and your brother promised." I stopped her right there. "No more promises, no more lies. We're done." Her lips trembled as if she wanted to beg, but I walked out without looking back. That night, as the city news reported the scandal, businessman and mistress exposed in deadly conspiracy, I sat beside my son's bed, his hand in mine. Finally at peace. My brother had lost his freedom. My wife had lost her mask. But I still had the only thing that mattered, my son, and a future free from betrayal. Tomorrow, I knew, would be the start of a new life.